probably not much different than I probably said the same thing at my 50th, that I never thought that I'd still be around to do the 60th, but I've certainly seen a lot of changes in those 60 years. That I'm sure if we were still doing what were doing 60 years ago, that there wouldn't be too many of us left in the industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed the challenges that have been thrown at me over the 30 years, but I think Ed just summed it up pretty well, that if we was doing things like we were 60 years ago, I don't think I'd be involved in the industry if we still was out there hand pruning and hand picking and doing all of that, There's been some great challenges over those 30 years, and I've sort of seen a lot of changes, and it makes you wonder what it will be like in the next 30 years for the next generation to come and go through and see what changes we're going to see in the next 30 years for them. So, but hopefully I'll be still around to enjoy that experience. Yeah, there wouldn't be too many grape growers in the valley that would be able to say that there's 90 years of experience between the two of them, and I still class myself as fairly young for my age. And it's absolutely fantastic to, if you've got a question or a vintage that you're not quite sure about, it's nice to have someone to go talk to that's got 60 years experience behind him. So he can remember back in 1950 wherever, it was a vintage much the same. And I'm only young now, and I've got people telling me I'm starting to sound like my father. You start comparing vintages to vintages, and I compare the 2016 vintage is probably as good as the one that we seen in 2004. But we'll see what happens with quality, because quality in 04 was an exceptionally good vintage, but I think it should shape up much the same this year.
Well, I think it's great, that, and I think in a lot of businesses, whether it's grape growing or anything else, that one generation can sort of lay the foundations, and it's good to see the next generation take over. I think we'll agree that nowadays to set up a business, it's certainly not easy, and that if you have somebody there that's hand in hand, it makes all the difference.
Yeah, no, it's great. Absolutely great experience. It's to have 3 generations that you can still shake hands with out in the vineyard, and be a part of the day-to-day running of a vineyard is absolutely great. And having my son, it was his probably first vintage this year, and very grateful to have him out there help bin trailer driving, and he's very keen to get on the harvester. But I certainly feel as though he'll be around, and his heart and soul's going to lie in the vineyard for the next umpteen years, I think, because he's sort of had it from day dot. When he was born, he was in the truck or in the tractor out with me. It was absolutely fantastic, and certainly keen. So no, absolutely fantastic.
Well, I mean, years ago it was always wishful thinking, but to see it happen, I think it's great. I think that if you look at a lot of other businesses that if it gets to that 3rd, 4th generation, that it's always great to see. I dare say there will be. I'm sure there will, but I don't think we're going to see all the changes that we have seen in probably the last 50, 60 years. As the wine industry or the grape industry, from when the first vines were planted in the Barossa, that nothing much changed in the first 100 years, and that I remember when we come to the Barossa that our neighbours said that you can't run a vineyard without horses, you can't have tractors. Well, where are the horses nowadays? Things will change as time goes by.
Yeah, I think there'll always be challenges, and I think the biggest challenge that what I've sort of seen working together with family, it's working together and being on the same page, and having the same love and passion for the end result, and I think there will be challenges, and family and business is always tough to work together, but you've got to be strong enough to see through a lot of that and have the brand in the main thought which way you want it to head. So no, there will be challenges, but it's a matter of sitting down and working through it together. Yeah, no, it's been an absolute treat, you know. We've had our bloody arguments, there's no doubt there wouldn't be no father and son that wouldn't have arguments, but you know, but at the end of the day, you know, we had the same focus that, you know, we were trying to build a brand and a label and try and make it very successful. And, you know, to have Ed's knowledge of 60 years of vintage, you know, it's just great to work with somebody that's had that amount of experience, you know. Money can't pay for that.
Well, I think that one of the things that I think that we've all got to accept is that you know, that if we're not going to accept change in any industry, that it doesn't sound a lot, but you know, that one word change, and if you stick to your old ideas, that you know, that I think that that's where the business becomes stagnant, and that you know, if there's new ideas out there, you know, endorse them, and you know, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. I think every vintage is different, but as Michael said beforehand, there are some standout vintages, and the 04 was one excellent one, and the 98 one was a great vintage, and that, but I mean, it's an old saying that always went, all the even number vintages are usually the better ones, and I wouldn't say that that's always correct, but a lot of times it is. I mean, you'll get a good vintage out of an uneven number, but in the past I've always known that the even number ones are the better vintages.
Oh, look, I think it will be a lot more computer-based, and managing soil management, I think, is one thing that's we've gone a long way probably in the last 10 years with soil management. If I look at the way we manage our soil now compared to 10 years ago, there's going to be big things like that. Probably not putting any more water on the vines, but trying to make that water go so much further to get better quality at the end. And there's going to be little roles like that, you know, with fungicide sprays and all of those kind of things. There's going to be little challenges all the way along, but you know, there will be certainly things, you know, like I said before, back in 30 years time, if we could be sitting here, you know, well, I think it'd be quite interesting to see the changes that would have happened over the next 30 years, but you know, I don't think they're going to be as big as what we've seen in the previous 30 days.
Well, I think it's, well, I do it with a lot of pride. I think that, you know, it's you see a lot of families where they sort of, you know, as they grow up, you know, they tend to go their own ways, and you know, a lot of the work that has been laid out there, or the foundations that have been laid by the one generation, you know, often is lost if the next generation doesn't sort of follow it through. And it's great to see the family involved in that.
Yeah, probably classed as a local now, I think. But you, no, it's just great, you know, to have, you know, same job 30 years ago, you know. There's never been a time where I thought I wanted to have got out the industry, you know. The biggest thing that I probably find the hardest thing to sort of deal with is the highs and the lows in the industry, you know. It'd be so easy if we just had a constant level, which would be so easy to manage, but you know, you get the exorbitant rate prices 1 year, and 2 or 3 years later you're getting stuff all for your free. It's just hard to manage those highs and lows in the system, but you know, business would be easy to manage if that was the case, but you know, yeah, so it's one of the things that I've certainly learned to manage is the highs and the lows in the industry.
Well, when I started, I didn't think I'd still be a grape grower in 60 years' time, but I know after the 84 vintage that with the hassles that we had with hand pickers, and that I said then that you know, our next move is that we're going to mechanisation, and that when we bought our first harvester, I said, well, if this doesn't work, well, then I'm out of the industry. Told by a lot of locals that within 2 years' time you'll be selling the machine and going back to hand picking. Well, that hasn't happened. People that are a bit slow at taking the change up have sort of been left behind. We all know that annoying people and that the irregularity of people turning up and hand grape picking